characters or the game systems itself, Undertale always keeps you guessing. Does this mean the game is malicious or bad in some way? No. I mean, one of the points of Undertale was to take the stereotypical JRPG style game and turn it on its head. The result of this design philosophy, I have to say, Undertale is one of the most untrustworthy games I have ever played in my entire life. Undertale's deceptive nature has led to some of the most memorable moments in all of gaming. You would think that a game that constantly makes an effort to troll you would be universally hated. Of course, we know Undertale is the opposite of hated. Today, I have compiled a list of over 30 different instances where Undertale misleads you in some way. Number 1. The intro. During this introduction cutscene, we see a child running up the mountain and eventually falling into the underground. You'll notice throughout this list that several of the tricks of Undertale come from information that hasn't been fully given yet. This story information is one of the first things a new player will see, and as a result, they have no choice but to assume the event in front of them is happening right now. The game then tells you to name the fallen child, and naturally, you believe you are naming the child you just saw. While this might be the case, you might also believe that you are naming yourself. This is mostly because you see that exact name every time you open your menu. The name in which you give the fallen child is not actually your name. This is confirmed with the true pacifist ending that the canon name for the protagonist in Undertale is actually Frisk. The name in which you are typing in is actually the name of the very first fallen child, the sibling of Azrael. So right out of the gate, the game makes you believe that you can play as yourself, but you were never playing as this person the entire time. You only just started, and this game has already pulled a massive wool over the player's eyes. It only continues from here. Number 2. Flowey's betrayal. A lot of Undertale's deception originates from its characters. Some deceive you with malicious intent, others are just natural-born goofballs. Flowey is unfortunately the former. As soon you find yourself within the confines of the underground, Flowey takes this as an opportunity to take your soul. Under the guise of showing you how to survive within the underground, Flowey tries to bring your journey to a swift end. This is referred to as the false friend trope. A character pretends to be your ally or friend, usually portrayed as a cute and sweet person to earn your trust. Undertale fast-tracks this trope by having Flowey immediately betray you here and now. Unfortunately for Flowey, he did not anticipate Toriel being there. All things considered, Flowey probably should have been more patient. Some tropes have a reason to exist. It is in the false friend's best interest to get what they need from the protagonist before they out themselves as a traitor. If Flowey would have simply helped the human all the way to Asgore, then betrayed them, Flowey might have been a little bit more successful. Number 3. The dummy. While Toriel guides you through the ruin, she directs your attention to this dummy. If you attack the dummy's cousin will eventually attack you when you enter the trash area. The game makes you feel like you are being punished for your aggression, when in fact, this is not the case. The dummy in the junkyard attacks you regardless of what you do. You can even just walk away, and the dummy's cousin will still hold a grudge. Number 4. Killing Napstablook. Napstablook is one of the first boss-type enemies you can fight in the game. Like every single enemy in Undertale, you can choose how to get rid of them. You can be patient and wait for them to move, or you can fight them. For the most part, an unsuspecting player would just attack Napstablook like a typical RPG, and the fight behaves normally like you would expect, until Napstablook's HP reaches 0. They are a ghost, their body does not have mass, and you cannot kill them. They were simply lowering their HP so you wouldn't feel awkward. How thoughtful, Napstablook. Man, nobody got me like Napstablook got me. Number 5. Toriel's tension. During your travels with Toriel, she stops you and then tells you to make it across this room by yourself. During this entire sequence, a fast-tempo song plays, causing a first-time player to become uneasy. There is nothing scary about this scene necessarily, but despite this, you still feel a sense of urgency. Of course, we know that Toriel is just testing us, and she is patiently waiting for us behind this pillar. A small misdirect in which you thought something bad would happen, which turned out to be nothing at all. Number 6. Telling you to wait. Toriel, soon after the misdirection, leaves the room and tells you to wait for her. Before, she wanted to just test you to see if you could be okay by yourself, and you passed. Now, Toriel tells you to wait in this current spot for her to return. I actually never knew this until I looked it up, but apparently if you decide to wait, Toriel calls you. After this dialogue completes, however, you have no choice but to continue through the ruins. Thought you could wait for Toriel to return, but you were misled in a very comical way. Number 7. Toriel is going to eat you. The story of Hansel and Gretel tells the story of two children who find themselves inside a witch's house. The witch plans to eat the children, but thankfully they survive. From a new player's perspective, after just receiving the coldest welcome you could possibly get from Flowey, you would naturally be on edge when it comes to monsters. Sure, Toriel might have saved your life, but can you really trust her? A new player's suspicion can only be increased when they find the box of random shoes. Several different shoes of varying sizes can be found inside the room Toriel puts you in. This can only make the player question what happened to the other children. To be honest, this would only deceive the player if they were in a very mistrustful mindset. You would only be under the impression that Toriel was going to eat you if you were aware of stories like Hansel and Gretel. Like I said, sometimes the game doesn't intentionally deceive you. Whether this was intentional or not is besides the point. The true deception at play here is tricking the player into thinking you can stay with Toriel, when in fact you cannot. You cannot stay with Toriel. Trying to go back upstairs as she demands will not allow you to stay. To progress, you have to fight her and enter the rest of the underground. Number 8. The Toriel fight. Speaking of Toriel, the game deceives us when it comes to Toriel's actions during her battle. Toriel does not want to hurt us. In fact, this is her essentially letting go of her existence. I honestly feel like at this point in her life, she's so distraught about letting another child enter the underground that she's willing to give up her life at this point. Toriel demands that you fight her to prove that you are strong enough to enter the underground. Eventually, if your health gets down to a certain point, Toriel will still attack you, technically, but her attacks will intentionally miss you. The game is trying to trick you into thinking Toriel wants to hurt you, when in fact, she does not. Number 9. The Sans Whoopee Cushion. Finally, we get to Snowden and Sans. This little goofball is going to take up like half this list, so I hope you like all of Sans' shenanigans. From the very first time we meet him, he is deceptively funny. He walks up behind you, and again, the music is used to convey emotions. Sans is completely obscured in darkness, and he demands to shake your hand. A subversion, if you will, where the game had you believe that as soon as you enter the underground, monsters would attack you relentlessly. Number 10. The Papyrus Puzzles. Leading into Snowden, you are met with the two Skelebros, and of course, the Great Papyrus wants to capture you and solidify his place as part of the Royal Guard. Naturally, being just introduced to him, the player would think that Papyrus is very competent. Papyrus is not competent. He's funny and endearing, but he is just not competent. A lot of his failures could be attributed to Sans messing with him, but for the most part, Papyrus is not the most intimidating enemy. This light puzzle is introduced with a massive detailed explanation for what the puzzle does and how you are supposed to solve it. Different colored spaces will afflict you with different things, and you are required to memorize the effects of these spaces and eventually solve the puzzle, which will be random. The puzzle turns into a solution that is incredibly easy. There are story reasons why this puzzle was generated to be insanely easy, but this sequence is still deceptive nonetheless. You were under the impression this was going to be a difficult challenge when it was just a humorous jest. Number 11. Sleeping at the Inn. In any typical RPG, there are places to rest. These locations can be placed in the world for the sake of immersion, or giving the player a safe place to save their game. Undertale specifically makes a note to give you a piece of technical knowledge regarding the inn in Snowden. If the player rests at the inn, they will regenerate 10 HP above the typical HP limit. This piece of game knowledge is the perfect misdirect, and it makes you think there is purely a technical reason for sleeping at the inn. This makes the reveal and subversion moments later all the more hilarious. You end up leaving the inn without staying because the other guests are snoring too loud. You still get to keep the extra XP though, so technically this is only a half lie. Number 12. Selling items. The next one is also a change from typical RPG tropes. Undertale has several vendors which you can buy consumables and equipment from. In your typical RPG, it is customary for vendors to follow a barter trading system. This means that usually a vendor can buy any item from the player. Naturally, Toby Fox thought this was a strange concept. In this instance, the vendor is just a normal shop owner, and when you try to sell them items, the vendor looks at you with confusion. They are trying to make money selling things that they have, and they aren't interested in buying your junk. Number 13. The Blue Attack. This is probably the first instance where the game messes with you in a way that can hurt you. Long before you fight Papyrus, you are told about these blue attacks. On at least 2 separate occasions you are told of these blue attacks in which you have to stay still. Then, throughout Snowdin, you actually fight enemies with these supposed blue attacks. The player is told about these attacks, they respond, and for the most part, they get very comfortable with these previously mentioned blue attacks. However, when Papyrus rolls out his blue attack, it is a darker shade of blue and it is an entirely different concept. This is Papyrus's blue attack, a darker blue, and it refers to Papyrus's ability to give your soul gravity. The game sets up a mechanic and it gets you comfortable with said mechanic to then give you an entirely separate mechanic altogether, claiming it was the same attack. To be fair, they do use a different shade of blue to signify the difference. Number 14. Befriending Papyrus. Have you ever met someone and found that they are just so nice you had no choice but to be their friend? Well, you're going to when you meet Papyrus, as no matter what you say to him, no matter what you do, unless you literally kill this little whimsical skeleton, he will be your friend. There is no way you cannot be Papyrus's friend unless you literally kill him, which is also a trick, as the game establishes Papyrus as someone who wants to capture you. Are you ready for a Sans marathon of shenanigans and overall tomfoolery? Because for the next 5 things, that's exactly what he does. Okay, let's rapid fire. Number 15. Sans breaks reality by leading you to places you should not be able to go. He plays off all of these areas as just shortcuts when in fact he's just bending reality to his will. Number 16. Sans tricks you again with the whoopee cushion. You honestly wouldn't think he would use the same joke twice, but he does. He places a seemingly invisible whoopee cushion on a seat for you to sit on. Number 17. He then offers you some ketchup for whatever food you ordered. If you accept, the entire bottle of ketchup leaks onto your food. He gives you his food as a consolation, but guess what? You never get to eat the food, ketchup or no ketchup. And finally, number 18. Sans begins to talk seriously for a minute. The light dims and the tone becomes serious, once again influenced by the music. Sans begins to question you about a certain talking flower. The word talking flower is even in yellow text, almost forcing the player to remember Flowey and all his yellow evil. You have the choice to tell Sans yes or no, but either way, he doesn't talk about the flower. Where there was an idea placed into the player's heads that they could get more context about the game's antagonist, it is then removed as Sans claims he was talking about the Echo Flowers. Sure, Sans, of course you were talking about the Echo Flowers, that's why you made the text yellow. This rapid-fire round of misleading the player is brought to you by Sans the Skeleton. There is a reason why he is the fan favorite, and there is also a reason why he is so memorable. To be honest, I think Sans is pretty funny, but I think if you actually had to deal with someone like Sans in real life, you would get annoyed pretty quickly. Imagine a friend who just plays pranks on you every so often, and he can literally bend reality around you to do these pranks. Flowey was scary, but at least he didn't do anything crazy like stop time. Sans has got to be one of the silliest and strongest characters in all of fiction. At least, that's what I thought. Funny story, there's actually this website that details a fictional character's abilities, and then it adds them up to get their power level, so to speak. And for some reason, they only gave Sans 1600. I feel like that's kind of low, considering everything he does in-game. Having a power level of 1600 would make him exceptionally weaker than many fictional characters, including but not limited to Mary Poppins, Birdo, and Groot. Just wanted to throw this out there. Courage the Cowardly Dog has a power level of 42,000. This would make Courage the Cowardly Dog 20 times stronger than Sans.
Stupid power scalers, but then again, Sans is canonically weak.
Now does it?
The only reason he's able to do all the attacks he does in Genocide was because he had
You see this scene play out between
a lot,
Papyrus
and I mean a lot, of
crazy
prep
monster
time.
is trying to kill you. The game intentionally tells you that Papyrus is going to work with
The
Undyne
moment
to
you
try to
kill Papyrus,
moments later,
Sans
Papyrus
never
calls
shows
you
up
and asks
ever
you
again.
what you are currently wearing. If you are like me, you tried to cheat the system and you thought you were finally onto the
He
game's
spent
tricks.
the rest of his time in the Judgment Hall,
This thing,
preparing for the time you'll show up.
Sure, this item isn't what I want to wear right
And
now,
if you've
but
killed the entirety of the underground,
by Undyne.
he's ready
And
to
of course,
attack
you
to
guessed
do
it,
more
Undyne
than just
attacks
judge
no
you.
matter what you are wearing. And funnily, if you don't change your appearance at all, Papyrus's reasoning is that he absolutely expected you to change your clothes. Thanks, Papyrus. If anybody got me, I know Papyrus got me. Almost killed. Number 20, The Death of Monster Kid. That name is actually just a joke. I'll explain that in a minute. Like I said earlier, Undyne chases you no matter what.
I actually forgot what I'm supposed to pick.
This patch of
Yellow.
tall grass. After the Undyne chase, the game makes you
Mara.
believe you are about to be found. Undyne swoops down and grabs something inside the grass, but it's none other than Monster Kid. A lot of people, and by a lot of people I mean every single YouTuber and streamer, me included, thought that at this moment Undyne accidentally killed Monster Kid. He was okay though, it was just a misunderstanding of the sprite. You thought that Undyne had discovered you, but instead it was Monster Kid. Number 21, the Sans Telescope Prank. This specific deception has some setup to it. Earlier in Waterfall, there is a telescope which gives you this secret message. Following this message will allow you to progress further. Not only does this instill a sense of confidence in the player when it comes to telescopes, but it also makes the player associate telescopes with the sensation of finding a secret by using them. Toby expertly generated this trust between the player and telescopes, and with the introduction of Sans, the telescope turns into another chance to troll you. It's okay though, you only have that paint on your face until the next screen. Number 22, the Legendary Artifact. Speaking of trolls, how about that Legendary Artifact, huh? Honestly, if you were fooled by this one after so many times the game tricked you before, you might actually deserve it at this point. No, seriously, like, what is even a Legendary Artifact when it comes to this game? This betrayal is behind a very clever puzzle. In typical RPG fashion, a secret puzzle is a fun way to give the player content and use their brain. The satisfaction of using the magical directions to play the piano and unlock the door is satisfying. But the overall enjoyment of a puzzle you get is taken away. Sorry player, I hope you weren't expecting to actually get something for all your hard work. Number 23, you cannot kill the dummy. Like I said earlier, you cannot avoid fighting the dummy, but on top of that, you will never be able to kill the dummy either. He is just like Napstabloop, you cannot touch his physical form. You were bamboozled. Number 24, Undyne's Health Bar. I think I speak for a lot of people when I say this is a very underappreciated way the game breaks its own rules, and it's also one of the more rare moments. If you are playing aggressively, but not necessarily playing a genocide run, fighting Undyne normally will eventually lead to her resisting death. Even after her HP bar reaches 0, she just refuses to die. In, like, every game ever, when the health bar reaches 0, the enemy dies. Undertale even tells you at the beginning of the game, if your HP reaches 0, lose. We know that Undyne is able to persist because somehow she has unlocked the ability to use determination. I think the best part about this is no matter how many times you hit her, it'll still do damage to her, but her health bar remains at 0. You thought you killed Undyne, but you have been duped. That's right, you've been speckle-dorped. Okay, that's not a word, but you get the idea. Number 25.
It is now.
Alphys's Deception. It's time for another rapid-fire list of hoodwinks. This time around, though, it is the scientist known as Alphys who is doing the hoodwinking. Alphys has become enthralled with the story of the human, almost like they are a character playing in one of the TV shows Alphys loves to watch. In her attempts to help the human and have a real friend, she puts the human through a series of fabricated trials and tribulations. Mettaton, her robot, makes us the guest star in an assortment of programs to entertain monsters all across the underground. Mettaton soon becomes fed up with the charade and decides to go off script. Now, you and Alphys are the ones being fooled. Right after Mettaton has been defeated, Alphys clears up another misconception. Number 26. You have to fight Asgore. Up until this point, you were led to believe that Asgore can simply be circumnavigated. Toriel, Papyrus, and the like have all given you this impression that Asgore is someone who can either be circumnavigated or be reasoned with. You could simply sneak past him or spare him, just like all of the other monsters you have met. But with Alphys' final word, she explains to you that it doesn't matter if you want to fight Asgore or not. If you have any intention of going home, you need a monster and human soul to pass through the barrier. This entire time, the game has led you to believe that everyone could get what they want in the end. But no, the final confrontation is unavoidable. Number 27, the story of Azrael. I fear that out of all the examples I have given today, this specific one will make people upset. Mostly because they either have not made the connection or they don't know the truth. Despite how this makes you feel, the story of Azrael, as it is told by the monsters, is incorrect. Granted, these monsters are telling the story with limited information. They were not there. But Azrael was. And during the true pacifist ending, if you make your way all the way back to the beginning of the game, Azrael tells you the true events of what happened that day. Azrael was not the only consciousness that inhabited his body. Kara, his sibling, was there as well. And in Azrael's own words, Kara wanted to destroy the humans, but it was Azrael's will which made them resist. This course of action, the division between the souls in this instance, is what led to the death of Azrael. The story of Azrael is still a good story to tell for the merit of peace, but in truth, this story is a cautionary tale about how history is written by the victor. Azrael was a victim that day, and he was unable to tell the true story of his passing. The only people who survived was Asgore and the monsters, and they interpreted the events as they wanted to, and thus the story of Azrael was made. It really puts history books into perspective, doesn't it? Number 28. Sans' Judgment. This instance is one of the most iconic moments in Undertale. The moment where all of your past deeds and actions will be judged and your decisions will be accounted for. This area is called the Judgment Hall. However, unless we are talking about a genocide run, Sans doesn't actually take you to task over what you have done. His judgments are verbal and nothing else. He only takes action against the human if he has no other choice. We know this is because he made a promise to Toriel to never hurt the human. I think calling the Sans judgment scene a trick or a deception is accurate, but it is also missing the point of this moment. Sans' judgment tells you to take a moment and think about what you have done. Really question if you have done the right thing. This scene isn't just for Sans to judge you, but rather it is for you to judge yourself. Sans is telling you to practice introspection, a skill a lot of people find difficult. A soul which judges its own actions will never have to fear the judgment of others. Being morally good is always a choice, and from the very beginning that choice is yours to make. And that is not a trick. Number 29. Love and Execution Points. This one is actually revealed during the Sans Judgment, but I decided to put it as its own because this is something that encompasses the entire game. At the beginning of the game, Flowey explains that LV stands for love. From a typical seasoned JRPG fan, the term love would stand for level, as in the level of experience your character has acquired. The game throws up an initial smokescreen saying that LV stands for love, but this in and of itself is also a trick. In this case, love doesn't mean compassion or infatuation, but rather the level of violence that a person can inflict onto another. As your love increases, your capacity to hurt other people also increases. EXP is also an acronym for Execution Points, a tally of how many times you have executed another living being. Number 30. The Coffin. The Coffin of the Red Soul is the one you find right before you enter the throne room. The king is waiting for you in his chamber, but if you continue down the way, there is a room of coffins waiting for you. All of the coffins are marked with souls of children who have fallen into the underground. The one closest to the door is marked with a red soul, just like you, and the name reads the same as the one in which you named the player at the beginning. This is directly connected to the first example in this video, however, it really deserves its own spot considering the implications. This coffin you find in the castle is not for you, just like your name is not the one you choose at the beginning of the game. This is the name of the first child, Asgore's child, the one in which Asriel returned home with. Number 31, Flowey killing Asgore. After the fight with Asgore, you have a choice to make. You can either give in and make Asgore pay for all the suffering he has caused, or you can choose to spare him. It does not matter if you kill him or spare him, Flowey takes the souls anyway. The Flowey fight happens regardless, giving you an illusion of choice once again. However, the implications of this are much more than just about who lives or who dies. The act of sparing Asgore is a stance, a declaration of your beliefs. Undertale is a game about choice, and while your gameplay may not change, you might not unlock a branching pathway or whatever, this is your choice. This is how you decide how to live. You either gave into violence, or you maintained your stance on pacifism. This choice wasn't about changing gameplay or getting a different ending. This is about you, the player, making a choice on what you believe. Number 32, Flowey taking the souls and crashing the game. Flowey takes the souls no matter what. Like I said, killing Asgore is your choice to make. Flowey takes the souls and eventually the game crashes. When before, the game would just give you a funny joke or a subversion, this is the moment where the game literally punches the fourth wall and shatters it. There is always a disconnect when it comes to video games and the hardware that it runs on. Very rarely do you want the player to be aware that they are playing a game, so usually sending a player back to the desktop would break immersion. Undertale understands this, and in reality uses this break to make this event all the more memorable. The intentional nature of this crash tells the player that this isn't just a video game, this is something more. This is also a way to inform the player of Flowey's new powers. Number 33, Genocide After Pacifist. This is the final one I could think of. I probably didn't catch all of them, but I'm pretty sure I caught most of them. When you complete an entire genocide run, destroy the save file and all, but then you reset the game and try to complete a pacifist run, something happens. Your character model jumps out of bed and stares you right in the face. They don't say anything, they just laugh. And you know exactly what this means. In completing a genocide run, you have committed an atrocity to such a massive level that you destroyed an entire universe. Something like this will follow you until the end of time. You will never be allowed to forget this awful thing that you did. No matter how much you pretend to be a good person, you will always have that part of you. A part of you capable of committing atrocities unlike this world will ever know. Or maybe it will. Maybe you'll just get bored again and destroy this world too. Who knows? This has been Undertale, one of the most deceptive games I have ever played. It should be mentioned that this duplicity is not something I would cite as a fault of the game. This isn't a video necessarily to criticize Undertale. Except for the EXP one, that one always bothered me. This game set out to take everything you came to expect from a genre, and it gave you something else. Not just for the sake of a gimmick or to subvert your expectations and call it a day, no. Undertale is a game that works these changes into its universe. The way in which it allows the gameplay to reflect the world as you play is a level of detail that people have come to appreciate. Undertale, it keeps you guessing, and it keeps you wanting more. If you can think of any other ways that Undertale deceived the player, I would love to hear them. Thank you all so much for watching. Goodbye.
Yes.
Where do I get small tooth?
何かあるわ。 やっと最後ね。余裕の勝利ね。余裕の勝利ね。倒すわ。余裕だな。
That's a purple beast fan.終わり。余裕の勝利ね。 Whatever, I'll just use the fucking copper.
おお、あの人たち。どうするのじゃ。家事をするんじゃな。今後ともよろしく頼むぞ。
いらっしゃい。またおいで。
何か用か。どうするのだ。他には。
Yeah, I'm hyper focusing on Mara's team.
じっくり見ていおやおや、おかえり。
Since I can't grind anyway, this is objectively the best way to play.
どうするのかな。それじゃ聞かせてくれる。そうだね。ダメだよ君。とりあえず感謝しておくね。しっかりね。
いらっしゃい。なんじゃ、お主たちか。どうするのじゃ。今後ともよろしく頼むぞ。
Hmm.
何か用か。
Umag
ど
would
う
be
す
a
るのだ。
great frontliner in like
他には、誰を呼ぶのだ。
Olin Mali's team. Can replace Nalsa.
?別の用か。気をつけるのだ。
なんだよ。どうするの。
I am sleepy and sick.
朝までお休みだね。